guys, and welcome back to the podcast. Today's show, we are talking about week 12, and we are talking about the recap to all the NFL action that took place here Sunday. And then I'm going to actually give you some predictions here for Monday night's game. So before we actually jump into it, let me first and foremost thank Anchor for being our platform, which is now Spotify podcast. You can actually catch the show on YouTube as well under Real Talk Sports with Rico. You can also check it on Spotify at Real Talk Sports with Rico. Then also, too, guys, I just want to go ahead and thank the fans out there for chiming in on a week-to-week basis and actually following us and helping us drive content to the show. Want to go ahead and give a special thanks out there to the sponsors who have put sponsorship on the show. And without further ado, I'm Rico. I'll be your host. Let's jump right into the content, guys. And I got some graphics to go along with it as usual. But let's start off with these horrible Thanksgiving games. And let's start off with what Washington and Dallas did here on Thanksgiving Day. That was probably one of the worst games in NFL history. I don't know why they put that game on. And then the irony of this is after this 45-10 beatdown by the Cowboys on the Commanders, they actually fired Jack Del Rio here. So, I mean, defensively, it's interesting because you think about it. Washington essentially is cleaning house. They have already traded off Montez Sweat. They traded off Chase Young as well. And pretty much Washington was a seller here at the trade deadline. So it's not a shocker that they got beat by Dallas. I mean, Dallas was supposed to win this game. As far as statistically, there's nothing that really jumped out at this football game. I thought it was light work for Dak Prescott, 4 touchdowns, 331, 22 of 32. Pollard only 79 yards, but he did have a touchdown as well. Brandon Cooks has really been heating up for this offense, 4 receptions for 72 yards. On the flip side of this thing, Sam Howell throws for 300 yards. Didn't throw a touchdown, but I think you're seeing the improvement there. And I think it is time to give actually Sam Howell his flowers, because I think that he has done a terrific job with Eric Bieniemy, and I think that he's only going to get better. But the Commanders have got to continue to clean house if they want things to change there. Next up, I think one of the upsets on Thanksgiving Day is going to be the Detroit Lions and the Green Bay Packers. Green Bay winning this one 29-22. And really, I think the story of this one was just awful play from Jared Goff. And this was essentially what happened to him when he played for the Rams as well. If Jared Goff is struggling, then usually the team struggles. And I think that that's what you saw today. Sunday, Green Bay was actually able to put a ton of pressure onto Jared Goff and made him extremely uncomfortable. He did throw for 332 in this one. He was only 29 of 44. David Montgomery had a touchdown. Jamar Gibbs continues to be an effective rookie on the ground as well, out of Alabama, 11 rushes for 54 yards. And even Amon-Ra St. Brown had a really good one as well. 9 receptions for 95 yards, the talented wide receiver out of USC. But I've got to give Jordan Love his credit, his flowers. A lot of people were wondering, can he do this? And he shows flashes that he can do it. I think that he just needs a little bit more time. 22 of 32 in this one, 268, 3 touchdowns. A.J. Dillon had a fair game on the ground. Christian Watson had probably one of his best games as a Packer here this season, 5 receptions for 94 yards. And I just think that the Packers did a terrific job in creating a lot of ball pressure and really kind of put Jared Goff into some uncomfortable situations in this one. Next up here, guys, we have the Miami Dolphins and the New York Jets. This was another awful football game. And I have to commend the coach for the Jets for going ahead and benching Zach Wilson, but I'm still not really clear where the Jets are going, because there's a ton of free agents out there that I think could really help this football team. I thought that there were a ton of people out there that they could have actually traded for, including Joshua Dobbs, that could have helped this football team. They're not getting any offense. The defense has been stellar. The defense actually did have a pick 6 in this one. And the irony to the Jets here is, if you were watching this game, is a pick 6 after they had got an interception on Tua, which was his second going into the half. It was 2 seconds to go. The defense of Miami is able to get a turnover, not only get a turnover, but run it all the way back. It was one of the best, I think, safeties in the National Football League to run that back. But yeah, I mean, it's just unfortunate, man, because the defense is so good, but they were on the field so much. I knew that they were going to take Breece Hall away and make it tough for him. 7 rushes for 25 yards. Garrett Wilson struggled 7 receptions for 44 yards. And even Tua didn't have the greatest game at all, which is why I'm shaky on the Dolphins in general, because I just don't believe so much in the Tua. I know this is a contract year, but there are times he is a bit loose with the football. He still has some injury concerns as well, but I will give him credit. Jalen, Waddle, and Tyreek Hill are having fabulous seasons. Tyreek Hill, 9 receptions, 102 yards, and a touchdown. Jalen Waddle, 8 receptions and 114 yards. And then how about Raheem Mostert, the talented running back room that they have here in Miami, 20 rushes, 94 yards. I mean, the Miami Dolphins have a ton of weapons, but they play a lot like the 49ers, which is understandable because that is where they got their coach from as well. And I just think that Tua is more so like a game manager. And when he's loose with that ball, Miami's in trouble. If he gets hurt, I think Miami's in trouble, but they get the win here today. Next up, you have the Saints and the Falcons. And I had the Falcons defense from a fantasy football standpoint against a struggling Saints offense. And I just think that the Saints really have got to go out now and draft a quarterback. I mean, they've tried to go out and get Jameis Winston. They tried to go out and get Derek Carr. And Tyson Hill hasn't worked out as necessarily a quarterback. He's more of a kind of like Cordell Stewart, if you remember, from Pittsburgh back in the day. But yeah, they're just ineffective. They can't get the football down the field. Alvin Kamara has been limited because they can't get the football down the field. They're not getting the kind of dynamic offense that they used to have with Michael Thompson there running out of that unbelievable post route that he used to run with Drew Brees. And I mean, look, Chris Olave, 7 receptions, 114 yards, but he got knocked out of the game, which was unfortunate. And this is a tough loss, I think, for the Saints because Desmond Ridder has already been benched for Atlanta. He came in, he threw 2 interceptions and had a touchdown, only a 63.3 rating. And then Bijan Robinson probably had another good game, one of his better games, 16 for 91 yards. I know he's been kind of teetering up and down. Drake London was a must start in fantasy football. He had 5 receptions for 91 yards. And so there's just a lot that the Saints have to look at here. And I mean, defensively, I think that they're solid, but offensively, they have got to figure some things out. And I think it's just going to come down to the fact that they are going to have to gut that football team on the offensive side of the ball. Next up, San Francisco and Seattle. This was probably the closest game on Thanksgiving Day. I mean, you saw a dominant defensive performance, I think, for the most part with the Seahawks. I think Seattle was able to get back into the football game. But unfortunately, I mean, it was just too many plays made by Brock Purdy and such. He was the ultimate game manager in this one, 209, a touchdown. He did have an INT. Christian McCaffrey, 19 rushes, 114 yards. So they had a lot of ball control there. Brandon Ayuk caught a beautiful touchdown pass. He's really blossomed here now in his what you would call his junior year. I'm proud for him. He's a guy that I'd usually stick with in fantasy football. Deebo Samuel's probably had one of his better games, 7 receptions for 79 yards. But I think when you look at Seattle, the key here is that they've got to try to figure out what's going on with the running game because they have Zach Charbonnet here. They obviously have had an injury to one of their main pieces that plays running back there. So, I mean, I think that that's the key for Pete Carroll and such is if he's going to be successful, he's got to run the football. Geno Smith is a little banged up as well, but Seattle is right there. This is a team that really impressed us last season. We thought that they were heading for the rebuild. Instead, they were able to take care of business here, and I think that they are going to sneak into the playoffs. Next up, you have the Steelers and the Bengals here. So I knew that the Bengals were going to struggle. I think much was talked about here because of, I think it was Coach Canada was fired here, the offensive coordinator for Pittsburgh. And I guess it does wonders because Kenny Pickett threw his first 400-yard game, which I know he's capable of doing so, or excuse me, 278. I'm sorry, 278 on the yardage in the air. 24 of 33, 97.8 was his rating. But Najee Harris played well, 15 rushes for 99 yards. They used Jalen Warren a lot more, 13 touches for 49 yards in this one. Pat Freiermuth, one of the better tight ends, had 9 receptions for 120 yards here. Hello and welcome back to the party. But I knew that the Bengals were going to struggle. They got absolutely nothing from Joe Mixon, where I think a lot of that's going to fall. Jamar Chase did have 81 yards, but only 4 receptions. Tyler Boyd didn't do anything. T. Higgins is still out with a hamstring. I think that the Bengals are probably headed for a tough season. I think that if you look at this historically, when the Bengals don't have Joe Burrow, they really struggle. And I had them up there in this division, but I think clearly now the Ravens are head and shoulders above this division. Next up, one of the better games of Sunday, the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Houston Texans. I thought this was a fabulous game between 2 brilliant quarterbacks, Trevor Lawrence, CJ Stroud. And it came down to a field goal. And I think it is time that we really seriously say that CJ Stroud is probably going to be Rookie of the Year. I think he's edged out Bijan Robinson at this point, throwing to a talented rookie wide receiver in Tank Dell. Nico Collins has been able to get going. They still have Dalton Schultz, who is a terrific tight end, one of the better ones that actually played for the Cowboys too as well. And I just feel like, the Texans they've really got something here with CJ Stroud. And I will say this about Ohio State quarterbacks that have come out over the past decade. I think a lot of times they have come into systems where the offense is not built for them. And I think that the Texans have done a terrific job in building an offense that is similar to what he ran at Ohio State in CJ Stroud. And I think you're seeing exactly what he got with Smith Jr., who's out in Seattle now, and then also too with Marvin Harrison as well. You're seeing the same kind of offense, and I think that it's been a natural fit for CJ Stroud. Kudos for him, and kudos for the Jaguars as well. I had said last year that when they hired Doug Peterson that they were really going to take a jump offensively here. I felt like if they couldn't win with Trevor Lawrence, then they would never win at all. And they've done a fabulous job. Trevor Lawrence throws for 364, a touchdown there. CJ Stroud, 304, 2 touchdowns. Like I said, he was fabulous. He had 47 yards on the ground as well. Nico Collins, 104 yards, a touchdown for him. Tank Dell, he had a touchdown as well. Like I said, man, both teams are headed in the right direction. I thought that it was going to be a long year for Houston. I will take those comments back. I mean, they are very much in the hunt for the wild card here. I like their chances. This young quarterback in CJ Stroud is unafraid, and I think Jacksonville is now ready to possibly challenge and maybe take over where the Bengals were a couple seasons ago. Remember when the Bengals kind of walked into Kansas City? I think that we now start to put Jacksonville into that category as a team that could walk into Arrowhead and perhaps get an AFC title. Next up here, the next game of Week 12 that we're recapping is the Denver Broncos and the Cleveland Browns. I thought Cleveland was going to be able to play a lot more better defense against Denver and really take away a lot of stuff, but Myles Garrett did get hurt in this football game. He saw after the game in an arm sling, did say that his shoulder did pop, which is not a great sign. Haven't read anything on the injury report as of Monday just yet. DTR had a welcome to the rookie a moment, or welcome to the NFL rookie moment as a quarterback here. Very tough sledding against a tough Denver defense. And I think that Russell Wilson went ahead and took care of business. And I think that it's time that we actually start to give Russell Wilson credit too as well. A lot of people were writing Russell Wilson off last season. We were writing Russell Wilson off this season. But quietly, Denver has got it together. They're 6-5. Sean Payton has got this team playing some winning football. He's gotten some guys involved in the offense as far as on the wide receiver standpoint, in Cortland Sutherland, Marvin Mims Jr. He's finding ways to get Jerry Jeudy involved. And he's getting Javonte Williams, a guy involved as well. And if you look at this offense, it's kind of similar to what he ran with the Saints. And I think that he's wanting to put Javonte Williams into that Alvin Kamara role. And I think that that's really where he's pushing Russell Wilson to go to. And I think that that's why ultimately you're seeing a lot of checkdowns here. But give credit where credit is due. They stopped Jerome Ford from having a good one. He only had 65 for Cleveland and only 22 for Kareem Hunt. So very good defense for Denver, and then mistake-free football for Denver as well. Perhaps I think one of the games of the day here, and that was the Buffalo Bills and the Philadelphia Eagles. I have got to give all the credit here to the Philadelphia Eagles. I am a Commanders fan, but I must say, fly, Eagles, fly. And for the people out there who have been critical about how the Eagles have been going out here and winning football games, look, they have done it in a lot of different ways. They have done it in a facet of running the football with Stromile Striff, who I said was going to open it up for them, or DeAndre Swift, excuse me, who I said was going to open it up for them. AJ Brown, who you know is a dynamic playmaker. Devontae Smith is a guy that's coming out of Alabama. He was an all-world wide receiver, one of the best, and I actually had picked him in this game. I thought that he was going to have a lot of opportunities. He did actually have the best game out of the wide receiver core. Usually they have Dallas Goedert out there running around from tight end standpoint. I mean, this team is just absolutely loaded with ways that they can beat you. And then how about Jalen Hurts and the way he was able to tuck it down and run? I had him going in fantasy. The guy went out there and got me 35. Look, the Eagles can beat you in a ton of ways. And how about I throw this stat out for you? Since the Buffalo Bills in 1990, I believe, that went to 4 Super Bowls in a row, there has been no team that has started off 9-1 like this since the Buffalo Bills. So that lets you know that this team means business. They're serious. They think that they can win games. And the one thing that I look at is just the look in a champion's eye. And I think you see that whenever you see Jalen Hurts out there. When they were down, and I was looking at this football game, and he had thrown the interception, he'd lost the fumble, I never really saw in his eyes that he thought that there wasn't anything that offense couldn't do to the Bills defense. And he knew, ultimately speaking, that he was going to make the plays to get the football down the field, to get the kick, which was incredible, to get to the overtime, but then to get the football back and get the luck of the draw where Josh Allen misses on a choice route to Gabe Davis for a possible winning score in overtime, to drive down the field and to end it on a running touchdown. Fabulous for the Eagles. Again, man, fly, Eagles, fly, as they continue to make things happen here. Next up here, one of the last games of Sunday was the Baltimore Ravens and the Chargers. I mean, this was a straight beatdown. Lamar Jackson and the Ravens were just able to run the football down the Chargers' throat. But man, what about that defense? I don't think I've seen the Ravens defense this good since 2000. And I mean, between the linebacker play that they have with Raekwon Smith and Patrick Queen, those guys are out there punishing people. And they have Javon Clowney out there running on the outside. Look, this is the defense you don't want to see. I had them picked to be at the top of this division. I thought that they were going to be duking it out with the Bengals. Now that the Bengals are clearly injured, wounded, and headed on the downturn, I like Baltimore to get certainly to win this division. I don't like them long-term because I don't like the fact that they get stagnated offensively. And I think you see that. I think with the defense that they played, they should have easily put up 30 to 40 points, and they missed a lot of opportunities. They only kicked field goals. I don't like that about them. I was really unsure of how they were using the backfield. Was it Gus Edwards? Was it Mitchell? That really was it Hill. It just was all over the place there. But they have got to figure that out, and they've got to score touchdowns in order for me to believe in Baltimore. The Chargers, on the other hand, I think that it's time to fire Staley. They just can't get it done under his regime. And I think that this really steams back a lot to what happened with the Jacksonville Jaguars when they were up 30-7 or whatever that was. Incredible last year in that playoff game, and they ended up losing it. So lastly, tonight's game, we have the Bears versus the Vikings. If I were to give a rough predicament in this one, I think that the Bears are going to give the Vikings all that they can handle. I think much like what they did with the Lions, I expect this game to probably be, I think it's going to be a 30-24 game. I think the Vikings do just edge this out. And I think the fact that they have Justin Jefferson out there is really going to help them. Um, I think Justin Fields is going to make this exciting, but I think ultimately speaking, I think the Vikings will take a step further to the playoffs and get into the wild card situation here even further, winning tonight in a 30-24 game. And with that being said, guys, that is my prediction for today. That is the recap, really, for all of week 12. Make sure that you follow Real Talk Sports with Rico on YouTube. You can see the shorts there. You can see the show podcast. You can also follow us at Spotify podcasts. That is where you can find the show too. Real Talk Sports with Rico. For the fans out there who have chimed in on a week-to-week basis and actually subscribed here, we love you. Thank you for helping us drive content to the show. And the sponsors out there, thank you so much for putting sponsorship on the show. So for myself, this is Rico. This is Real Talk Sports. We'll be back with another show, guys. I'm saying peace and enjoy Monday Night Football tonight, guys. I'll see you guys on the next show where we'll be talking about some NBA action. Take care, guys. Peace.